Good afternoon and welcome to everyone joining us for this quarter's Juris Tuesday Topic webinar to gain best practice recommendations on how to best answer quick questions from your attorney, featuring our guest speaker, Kimberly Britton, a senior LexisNexis Juris Professional Solutions consultant. Kimberly has been a long-time valued resource to Juris, recently celebrating 20 years serving the Juris client base. She has held a range of positions championing for the Juris clients, including DOS conversion engineer, trainer, customer support representative, 2L engineer, and currently a senior consultant on the Juris Professional Services team. My name is Dave. I'm a marketing associate here at LexisNexis, and I will be your host for today's session. Today, Tuesday topic webinars are complimentary to our Juris customers and have been designed to help you get the most from your Juris software by providing you with time-saving tips and best practices for using Juris. The format for today's webinar is a presentation provided by Kimberly, followed by a question and answer period. All our attendees will be in listen-only mode for the duration of our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the questions pane located on your webinar control panel. During the last 15 minutes of the webinar, Kimberly will answer your questions. Please note that we are recording today's event, and all attendees will receive an email within 1 week with a link to the recording and any slides that Kimberly may use. Also, there is a brief survey at the end of our webinar today that we ask you to please take a moment to complete. Your feedback will help us in planning our future events. Well, Kimberly, at this time, I will turn the webinar over to you.
All right, thank you, Dave. And thank you, everybody, for showing up today. We appreciate you taking the time out to be with us. Today, we're going to go over how to best answer quick questions from your attorneys. It could be from other people in the office as well. Going to be working pretty much in the product. Don't worry about making copious notes. I've got a very detailed presentation, PowerPoint presentation that they'll be sending out. So let's get started. So where can you go to find answers without going to run a voluminous report every time you need to see something? I mean, there's 3 places that we can go. We can utilize client matter inquiry. We can use the My Time and Expense filters, and then we can also use the data and analysis tabs within a report, and we'll be going through all 3 of those. So first, let's get started with client matter inquiry, and there's a couple of things that you just need to be aware of as you're coming in and starting to look for things. A lot of our clients have been on Juris for 20 plus years and have clients that have a lot of history. So when you're doing your search, you need to think about whether you're trying to look for something current. So if you're going to look at the most recent cash receipt applied, or whether you're trying to find inception to date numbers. You want to make sure that you have the proper selection on the top of your screen. If you utilize the top 500 records, that's going to be the good one to use when you're looking for current information. All records is going to be when you're going to want to be getting those total numbers or inception to date numbers. But you just need to be aware that it is going to return a lot of records, and sometimes it could cause a delay in the results being returned. The other thing to keep in mind is if you go in, if you're already kind of familiar with the filtering and grouping process, those settings will stay. So you want to make sure that if you've done any kind of one-off things that you reset the defaults so that all of the fields that you would normally see are there and you're getting all the information that you need. I'm going to go ahead and set mine to all grids in the client matter inquiry, so those are our defaults. Okay. So probably one of the most basic questions people normally get is I want to see the details of the unbilled time and expenses. And so we can navigate in client matter inquiry down to fees, come into our unbilled details, and you'll just see your list of time entries there. These entries can be exported. You can export them to Excel. You can drill down to the location that you want to save them. I would recommend changing that location because the default location is way, way, way down in a bunch of different folders, so I would redirect that. You can, if you print preview, take a second to come up. You can see you can get kind of a report of the detail. You have the option here to export in a variety of different formats. You can also email directly from here. The other neat thing about print previewing before you send something is you have the ability to put a watermark on your document that you're sending. So if you are printing something and you want it to be for internal use only to make sure that they don't send something, you can add a quick note. You can change the direction, you can make it bold, change the color, make it italic. You can put it in front of the text that's on the page. You can actually even choose a page number that you want it on, so if you only wanted it on the first page. And then you can set the transparency level also so that it's really light or make it darker, whatever your preference is. And then it prints out on the report like so. Alrighty, so another common question when you're looking at your build details is they want to know what the value of the worked hours or the amount was for the time that was billed. And so there's a quick, easy way to do that, but we've got to go in and add fields to our layout. And you're going to do that by right-clicking on any of the column headers. You're going to choose Column Chooser, and you'll see that you've got a wide variety of additional fields that you can add in to different views. And these items will change depending on which type of query or what section that you're in. So these are not available on all of them, but just on some of them. So we're going to add in the amount before the pre-bill edits. And we're also going to add in the hours, actual hours worked. Okay, and so you can move these, off and on by utilizing the greater than and less than signs. And then we can move the position of those fields here as well using the up and down arrows. So I'm going to move my amount down here. And I'm going to use my hours. I'm going to put them up here so they're right next to each other. Okay. All right, so now I want to compare my hours that were worked to my hours that were on the bill. And so we can also sum these fields so that we can get totals. And again, you're just going to right-click on this bottom gray bar, and you got to be just in the right spot. It can be a little finicky sometimes. So we're going to sum the actual hours and the hours that went on the bill, and so that we can see that there was some time written down during the billing process. And then we're going to sum on the amount and the amount on bill. And again, so you can get those different values that you can show. All right, so if you wanted to see how much each timekeeper worked or billed as well, there's a great feature that you can use called grouping. And you basically just drag and drop the fields you want to group by up into the gray bar header, and it will group by that particular field. Then you can come in and sum those groups as well by right-clicking and hitting Sum, and you'll see that it populates all the levels, all the different people in your grouping. You can also do this. Just go ahead and do a 4, and then on the amount. Okay. So the other place that you can do this, you can also do this on the Analysis tab. It's got less fields to work with, but again, just a quick way to pull in the data. So we're going to right-click on the drop column fields here. We're going to ask it to show our field list. And you'll note that these are just the standard fields that were in the bill details section. It's not going to pull in any additional fields that you add, so it's only going to be those standard ones. So we're going to take the code, which is the matter code, and we're going to drop it to the row fields here. And actually, I'm going to change my client matter number so we've got a little more data to look at. All right, we're going to drop the employee ID in the same location, and you'll know you're in the right spot. Hopefully y'all can see the black square that comes up as you hover over the other field. So now I can do the employee, and we're just going to do hours on bill for now. And so now you can see just real quickly how many hours each attorney worked on each matter. In addition to this, I can come in and I can filter by clicking on the little filter icon. If I uncheck Show All, I can click on a single matter to view, or I could click on 3 particular ones I wanted to see. And I can also come in and do an additional filter if I just wanted to see a specific timekeeper. I'm going to put these back on. Now, one thing you'll notice is that it doesn't give me any totals. And so if I wanted to see the total for that, we can right-click on the hours on bill, come down to the Add Summary fields, and I'm going to choose Hours on Bill Sum. That's going to add that to my pivot field list. And now I can drag and drop that over, and you'll see that I now have a total for the matter. And it does do the $sign even though you're doing hours, but it is just hours. Okay, let's come back out over here. So I'm going to go back to the General tab. A lot of times you're asked, you know, when's the last time something happened on this matter? So on the General tab, you're all probably familiar with this. We've got last bill date, last payment, your last time entry, and your last expense. In addition, you've got your billing timekeeper, the originating timekeeper, the date the file was open, prepaid balance, etc. You'll need to note that if you don't have if you don't have a matter number in, that the information displayed is going to be at the client level. And if you put in a matter number, that information is going to change to the matter that you're requesting. Okay, a lot of times people ask you what somebody's trust balance is. Come down to trust, and we're going to go to the ledger. I'm going to change this to a different client. And you see that we've got one bank code here, and we have a running balance. And so this running balance, the last line item, is going to give you your trust balance for that client matter. One thing to make note of is that if you have 2 trust banks, let's go into a different matter, you're going to see that all of your transactions are kind of commingled. And the balance that you have is actually the balance of both banks. So in order to separate those out to get your different totals, the easiest thing to do is just come in and group by your bank code. And you'll now see the transactions are separated out by bank. We can come into the amount column. Expand that out. So we now have our individual trust balances. Oh, in addition, they want to see the detail of those transactions. You can come in and do a print preview. You'll see that it does your transaction type, and then you can email it or export it to whomever needs to see it. Now, one thing to note as well is even if you have these collapsed and you go do your print preview, it's still going to show the detail. Alrighty, so next, what if you wanted to see how much had been billed for task code for a specified period of time? Now we can go back to our fees, go back to our bill details. I'm going to reset my default values. We're going to right click. I'm going to go to our column chooser. We're going to come down to our task code. Let's move it up and save. And now we've got our task code, and we can come in and we'll group by that task code. We're going to sum on those hours, and then we're going to sum on the total grouping. So now you can quickly tell how many hours were billed for each specific task code. You can expand that out and see the actual time entries if needed. Pull that back over. Okay, so actually, let's put this back over. So what if you only wanted to see task codes that were billed for this year? So we can do an additional custom sort or custom filter. When you click on the little filter in the top right, I'm going to click on filter. I'm going to do a custom. I'm going to enter in my date range. And is going to be my operator. I'm going to do 3/4/30/2020. Now you'll notice when you do that filter, it's going to change the values because you're only requesting time entries for that specific date. I only have time in April, so you'll see that, again, it restricts those values. Alrighty, so something else you might get asked is what fee schedule is Client Matter using? So if you're looking for the current one, let's get some data here. All right. Again, we're going to go into our column chooser by right-clicking the column header. I'm going to go down to our fee schedule code and move it over. And you're going to be able to see the fee schedule. Now, this fee schedule is the schedule that was in place at the time the time entry was done. So if you're looking at your unbilled details, and that time is current, you're going to have a good idea that that's still the current fee schedule. When you're looking at your bill details and you're looking at the fee schedule, this can give you kind of a general idea of when a fee schedule may have changed. That's not necessarily the rate, but the actual fee schedule itself. So if I come down, I'm looking at my fee schedule, and so here it changes from standard to SEC. So we'll get a general idea that, hey, this was probably changed in January. And then coming back down again, when we have our change from 3/31 to 2020, that likely a rate change occurred at the beginning of that year. So it can just give you a good idea of, feel for when things have happened. All right, so something else you may get asked is how much prepaid has been applied to a particular matter. I'm going to change this. Okay, so when you're looking in your ledger history, you'll notice that you have your prepaid lines. These are the ones with a 0 are your deposits, and then the prepaid lines that have a bill number is where that prepaid was applied. So if we wanted to see just those items where prepaid was applied, then we can change our type to PPD and do a custom filter to does not equal a bill number of 0. Okay, then we can come down and we can sum this field, and we can see we applied roughly $51,868. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful of is any bills that were unposted. So you just want to keep that in mind as you're looking for those, looking at those values, that some of those bills could have been in unposted. All right. I'm going to quickly see an AR balance. You're going to go into your bill inquiry. You can go to your unpaid bills. Again, come down, sum, and quickly get an AR balance and your bill number detail. All right, so the next place that we can go find information is through my filters. And so utilizing the filters in my time and my expense can gain you a lot of information. So again, some of the things that you need to think about are your team selections. So if you are a manager or a lead on a team, you're going to see those filters in your view. If you are a member only of a team, then you would not see anything but me. So you want to make sure that you've got the proper designation on the team for you to see those if it's needed. All right, so your filters basically allow you to pull in certain pieces of information based on parameters that you input. Excuse me. And so when, timekeepers are coming to you asking you kind of repeatable questions every month about time entries, you're going to want to set up a filter for that so that you don't have to go around and pin and go run a dozen reports if it's something that you can easily find through here. So a pretty common one is how much time was entered on a client last month. So we're going to create, I'm actually just going to modify an existing filter that I have. But normally you'd click on new, you assign that a name. So I'm going to do client in last month. If client code equals, now if you are, typically you're going to want to use a prompt for most items so that you can key in what you need at the time you need it, because it may not always be the same thing. So, different client every time or a different date range, etc. If it is a repeatable request for a specific thing every month, then go ahead and hard code it in. So you could come in and actually hard code this, and we'll name this. To go add an operator, you're going to click on the plus sign. And we're going to go look for our entry date. And you'll see that we've got a variety of items that we can add, right? So we'll do last month. Last month. Let me actually change this to 4,000, sorry. Don't have any time on the other one. So this will this will pull in just client 4,000 and just time from that's dated last month. We're going to save, close out. To execute the filter, you're going to just click on it. Nothing came up. Always remember that when you run a filter from this section up here, that you have to be on My Filters over on this left pane to see your returns. So I'm going to come to My Filters. I've got my time from last month. And again, just like in Client Matter Inquiry, you can do additional groupings. So if they wanted to see, what timekeepers, how many hours they had worked, you can quickly do those pivots here as well. Now the sum here, instead of going down to the bottom of the screen, you're actually going to do it on the column header. You right-click, go down to Summary, and choose Sum. Okay. All righty, so let's take the timekeeper ID. All right, so let's say we wanted to do a client and a date range. We're going to come into our filters. We're going to create new. And we're going to do client and date range. Okay. So we're going to do client code. Excuse me. I'm going to leave it at prompt this time. Then I'm going to click on the plus sign. And I am going to do my entry date. And I want that entry date to be greater than or equal to the initial date that I input. I'm going to add another line, and I'm going to leave my entry date there, but now I want it to be less than or equal to the prompt that I enter. Save. Choose my filter. So we're going to search on 4,000 again. And I want it to be all time this year. So you could do this for a single day, do it for, a month range, whatever you need. You can also, on the entry date, if you click this down arrow, you'll get a little calendar. My personal preference is just to key it in, but function is there if you prefer it. Okay. Something else to note, you'll notice on my filter options that I have include build entries. Something else that you need to think about when you're doing your filters is whether if you're going back a month or two, that time has probably already been billed. So you want to make sure that you include your build entries, and that's referring to the entry status. Excuse me. If you've got, if you're doing a large search and you have include build entries on there, and you have an old client matter, it's going to bring in a lot of information, and you'll see this, this number exponentially grow. So you want to just be cognitive of that, because again, it's just going to pull back a lot of results. All right, so excuse me. Let's do, let me pull in a different client. Enter in my date range. All right. I don't have enough time to do this. Sorry. All right. Okay, so What if you wanted to see draft entries that were dated in 2020? A lot of times, as you can see in my data, that, you know, especially when timekeepers first start working, they'll start entries, they'll come in the next day and not realize that they've got to change their filter to my time today, and they'll start recreating an entry. So if I wanted to see a certain date range of time, I can come in and do a custom filter in here as well. Less than or equal to. There we go. And that will restrict my time down as well. You can come in and pin on the entry status. So if you just wanted to see those items that were still in draft. Now there's lots of groupings and different things that you can do in this area. Alrighty, so let's go to my reports. And we're going to go run a collection analysis by billing timekeeper with client. And I'm going to run this for inception to date because I don't have a lot of data. All right, so let's say you give this report to your timekeeper, and then he comes back and says, hey, you know, I want to know what matters had collections for this client. Most reports are going to have data way more than you'll ever need. The queries are pretty massive, and they generate or they run multiple different types of reports. So you're going to have all kinds of information back here. But it does allow you to come in and filter down to a particular client or any of these data fields, you know, by coming in and doing your filter. Let's see if we can get one with a few more matters on it. There we go. And then you can come down and you'll look at your fees received, and you've got your values for all of your different matters. Now, what if he only wanted to see those matters that had received over $100,000? We can come into our little filter icon, can do custom, and what we want to do is greater than 100,000. And now you'll see it's pulled out a couple of those matters that had less. So you can come in and you can export your data, you know, Excel, CSV, so that you can go in and further manipulate the file. Again, you've got all these fields that may not be relevant, right? So a couple of different ways you can handle that. You can come in, I'm going to move this up. You can come in and just take these fields and drag them off the screen, and you'll see where I get the X when you come off, and that will lower the number of cells that come over when you export. Or, you know, obviously after you export it to Excel, you can go in and delete those columns. This is going to be probably the easiest way to manipulate data outside of Juris is going to be using the Data tab, because it is just linear returns. You don't have to worry about merged cells or anything of that nature. Okay, we can kind of accomplish the same thing on the pivot tables. So using the analysis tab, you can just pull in those specific fields that you're wanting to see. So again, like in client matter inquiry, we're just going to drag and drop the fields that we want. Now, there's not any kind of key to tell you, if you're supposed to drag it to the drop data items here or filter fields here. But as you're dragging and dropping the fields over there, it should be painfully obvious whether it's correct or not. You also know your data, so again, it should be pretty obvious. Okay, and so now I'm going to take my fees received, drop it in, pull this down. I've got totals for each of my bills. And if I wanted to break this down further, I'm a billing timekeeper, I can do that. Again, you've got your filters, so if you only wanted to see, specific clients, if you only wanted to see a specific timekeeper, okay. Again, exporting the data. Now I'm going to actually export this one because I want to show you what the merged fields and why it's easier to pull it off of the data tab. I am not an Excel guru, but I know you can come in and over here, go to the unmerged cells. I haven't played with this a whole lot, but it does allow you to come in, do my filter. So it's a little bit easier. There are probably people out there who know Excel a little bit better than I do, that know how to do all that. So I did ping Stan and ask him if he knew of a better way, and he did not know one offhand either, but I'm sure if you Google it, you could find some stuff out there. All righty. Okay, let's take client cost advance. So client cost advance is an account that should not be out of balance. There's a whole balancing process around it, but a lot of times the reason that account gets out of balance is because somebody's coded something wrong or incorrectly, or hit that account by mistake. And 99% of the time, you're going to be able to find you're out of balance by running your general ledger trial balance and looking for different types of transactions. Pull. Date range. Oh, I forgot this is 286. There's a problem with 286 report. Hang on one sec. Let's go do this one. Christy did some changes to that detail report, and when they rolled out 286, they forgot to link the sub-reports. Oh, put a new date in. Sure why that's not running. Okay, Well, what I was going to show you was how to pin on the journal entry source in that report, but for some reason it's not running. I've got, I think I've got different versions of Juris Core and Juris Suite right now because we just upgraded our machines to the latest version, and I haven't updated that database yet. And I think that's why that's happening, so I apologize for that. So that is all I have for today. And so, Dave, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. This does conclude the presentation side. At this point, I do not see any questions coming in. So to the folks out there, if you do have any questions, kindly answer them or place them, if you will, in the questions pane, and we can address them. And what I will do then is give it a couple more minutes. And in that interim time, Kimberly, if you had any other concluding remarks or any particular announcements regarding Juris or anything else, you can take that time now if you wish.
Okay, so 286 has just been released. We've got several clients that have upgraded. I've gotten good reports back so far, so I would encourage all of you to go out to the support center and take a look at the release notes and evaluate whether any of the remaining items that are still defects would affect your firm, and make sure that you do a lot of pre-planning. Bill and check designs do have to be converted due to the change in technology if you're still on 261. If you're on a version 2.7 or up and you haven't upgraded to 286 yet, make that call and get upgraded to the latest version.
Okay, very good. Well, I guess we're going to wrap up. I don't see any questions coming in. I want to thank you, Kimberly, very much for your informative session today. And that, as I say, does conclude today's webinar. I just have a few quick follow-up reminders. All of our attendees will receive an email within 1 week with a link to a recording of today's webinar, as well as any slides Kimberly used for her presentation. Also, I would like to take a moment to encourage you to browse thenewjuris.com for all of the in-depth training, support, and technical resources you need to help your Juris experience run smoothly. In closing, there's a brief survey at the end of our webinar today that we ask you to please take a moment to complete. Your feedback will help us in planning our future webinars. Well, that's it. Thank you all for your time today. I hope everyone has a great day.